Alrighty, let's get things started. Again, like I said, go ahead and drop any questions that you guys might have in the Q&A right now. Feel free to share any wins or any unique stuff that you guys have found within Open to Close that you wanted to share as well. Okay, looks like we've got the first one. So Todd says we are actively using the system. Both agents and the TCs are entering properties. We are finding things that we did wrong to start with and adjusting accordingly. So far, so good. It's going well. Good. That's really good. And yeah, when you first build out the system, I always make this suggestion to everyone is that when you build out the system, you're going to build it out for a perfect transaction, right? You're going to build it out for that one really golden child transaction. And then as things go different or as things go wrong or as things change and shift in that transaction, that's when you're going to take the time to make those notes to go, well, it'd be great if this email came out, or, I need to make it that this task does this, or I need to make it that I have this document come on, or it would be great if we had an email that sends out this document, right? And you write down those lists. And usually what I say is take some time either at the end of the week or the beginning of the week, whichever makes the most sense for you, to then make those changes within your account. So yeah, I'm glad it's going well. As you continue to push forward, Todd, and have more people, have more transactions coming into your account, you're going to find more things that you're like, oh, it would be great if we did this, or it would be great if we did this. It's better to learn on your feet with those situations, as long as you understand the basics of, Open to Close, and you understand, how the system works. You can always, pivot and build from there. Awesome. Anyone else have any questions that they want to cover today, or anything that they needed to, that they wanted to share? Awesome. Well, I don't have any topics necessarily that I'd like to share. So let's go ahead and go over some of the support features that we have within Open to Close, and just talk about the webinars really quickly while you guys are thinking about what questions you want to ask. So within Open to Close, if you're looking for chat support, you're going to come down to our little chat icon down here. You can send us a message. You can also reread any previous messages that you might have sent as well. This can be kind of helpful if you want to check in on something. Maybe one of our support teams sent you a loom, and so you want to get back to that loom. You'll be able to see a copy of those messages here. If you're looking for like our help guide center or a help center, you're going to go up to the person icon in the top right-hand corner. Once you click on it, you're going to get down to Support Center, and it's going to open up a new tab. This is our Support Center. So if you guys are like, oh, I'm interested in fields, you can start to type in fields, and it's going to show you a list of things that come up for fields. Oh, actually, Hannah, I'm trying to focus on my smart blocks. Type in smart blocks, and here you'll see all those smart block options. So just depending on what you're looking at, this is where you can search up stuff. We've been adding in more and more different kinds of features within Open to Close, and different kinds of support as well. So we do have this frequent asked questions right now as well. And this can be very helpful for a lot of you guys who are like, this is something that I keep running into. What do I do about it? There's not necessarily an article, but maybe it's a frequent asked question. So definitely take a look at these. We're slowly but surely adding to this list as we go through and find more of those frequently asked questions. We're adding to this list. I just like pointing this out because I know a lot of people haven't seen it just yet. The other options that we have is if you're on our dashboard or you're on our landing page for Open to Close, you can head over to our Learn tab. Help Guides is going to open up that Open to Close Support Center, just like that Support Center did. But if we click on Webinars, that's going to open up our list of webinars. Today we covered fields, and then obviously we have our Wednesday workshops, which is happening right now. Next week, we're going to be going over Tasks and Triggers 101, and then we'll be going over Contacts 101 as well. If anyone's interested in signing up for those, absolutely feel free to navigate to opentoclose.com/webinars. And you should be able to locate these ones. We've got some future classes obviously as well. So this is scheduled out. So if you're like, oh, you know what, I really want to just do a deep dive on documents. In 2 weeks, we're going to be covering documents. In 3 weeks, we're going to be covering intake forms and using Open to Close on the 15th of August. So just some ideas of places that you can get more direct help. These calls are really great if you want to just hyper focus on one subject within open to close. You don't have to have gone to the previous classes to join this one to understand what we're talking about. Cool. Looks like we do have a question. I'm working on my task templates, as you know, and I have been splitting them out. Keep wondering if I'm splitting them too much, like dissecting the tasks too much. What are your recommended task lists? Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great question. So as you guys know, we're all going to make the suggestion that you guys split out your task templates to have these little baby task templates. I'm going to go ahead and head down to our hammer icon within the pre-built within this account. We're going to go down into templates, and then I'm going to click on task templates. And then what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to click on sort templates, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can show you guys my list of current task templates that I have right now. So my best suggestion when it comes to splitting up your task templates, let's say you had that first task list and it had all of the tasks that you handle within it, right? When you start to split up your task templates, what I want you to be thinking is when I take maybe these 2 or 3 task templates, right? HOA is a good example. I only have like 3 tasks on that particular task template, and it's just reaching out for the documents, sending out the documents, confirming that they have the documents, right? It's very simple. But the reason that we have it split out is because we might not be doing that every single time. So the only time you need to keep things on your main buyers under contract task lists are tasks that you complete every single time for every single buyer contract. Okay. So when you're thinking about splitting them out, if you split it out and then you realize, oh, you know what, this is my inspection task list, but within my inspection task list, I do touch on well and septic, you might want to consider splitting those ones out as well, just so that you can have that, inspection task list here, septic and well, because you might not always be handling septic and well. So if you're looking at those tasks and you're going, well, the only time I would handle this is if we have, a well on the property or a septic on the property, then I want these tasks to come on. That's when like, okay, this is where I'm going to map that out. And I'm going to have it that, I've got my set of inspection tasks if an inspection is yes, but if there's a well also, then I also have my little mini well tasks that come on as well. So that's sort of the idea behind it. But this, I guess, would say is the rough list of tasks that you can use, or task lists that you can use. It's not entirely encompassing though. Again, this account and the tasks that I'm looking at, this was built off of, I believe a combination of Colorado, California processes. So some of you guys who are on the East Coast, you might look at these and go, well, I actually handle this or this, or I don't handle this and this. And so it might be different for you. It also might be different depending on if you're in a, what do they call it? I'm gonna say the wrong name again, but if you're in an attorney state or a title state, I believe that's the terminology I'm looking for. But it just depending on how you guys process your transactions, you might have different task templates too, and different ways that you handle that. You also might have different task templates if you're handling different types of processes, right? The way that this certain account is built out is for just those general residential contracts. I'm not talking about anything that's like purchasing land. I'm not talking about purchasing REOs. I'm not talking about purchasing commercial property either. So those might have their own specific task templates as well, right? Maybe that's, you have a buyer, but they're purchasing land. So you might have a main buyer's under contract task template that's different from your main under contract task template. So you could have a variation of task templates depending on what kind of sales you're doing. Let me know if that helped answer your question, Pam. I'll go ahead and leave this screen up for now. Again, here's where it starts into seller, and it shows all the seller ones and post-closing tasks. And above that is all the buyer ones. And we've got some test ones in here too, because, you always have some tests in your account just to make sure things are operating properly. Are there any other questions that we have regarding task templates? Does everyone feel good regarding using task templates, setting up task templates? Or does anyone want to review any strategy when it comes to task templates? Awesome. Anything to share? My other panelists, Jill or Matthew, do you guys have anything to share that you've seen happen with task templates? Cool. Looks like we have another question. We did break down ours into little sections and found that it was too complicated. We combined it into a lot fewer sections. Yeah. And sometimes you're going to find that too. You're going to find, if you went too granular, maybe you've got one task template that has one task on it, you might find yourselves combining them. For example, I've seen a lot of people end up combining their well and septic tasks, and sometimes their survey tasks as well. Oh, no, no worries, Todd. Yeah, I've seen some people combine some tasks if they know that they're handling it. For example, I ran into a scenario recently with a client where they have inspections, right? And then they have it that their home warranty or their home insurance comes on if there is an inspection. So then they need that home warranty information to come on. And we were trying to brainstorm how we can have that come on, or what kind of conditions we can use for the triggers. And we ended up coming down to, we can have one trigger. We don't have to have multiple. We can have one trigger that says, if inspection is equal to no, then, the trigger can come up, or if inspection's equal to yes, and we're also handling this other process, home warranties included, then we can have it come up. And so it was just kind of cool to kind of like think through that. If anyone else has any more questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and exit off of this screen, and then I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I think that's good. I usually think I'm zoomed in at least once. There we go. If we don't have any questions, we can cover other parts of the system. Is there any parts that you guys are kind of struggling with, or you want to take a deeper dive in or take a deeper look at?
I've been seeing some more questions, smart blocks, on commissions too, if we want to do that after smart blocks, Hannah.
Yeah, that'd be great. So when we're talking about smart blocks, it kind of depends on what you're wanting to look at. No worries, everyone. Yeah, it's and this call is usually good for, if you have those questions, definitely feel free to drop them in there. But if you're here because you're like, I don't know what I don't know, and I want to hear what other people think or what other people are struggling with, this is also the best call to come on to, because then you can learn a little bit more. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think let's go into smart blocks. Let's kind of jump into that, and kind of take a peek at that. It just kind of depends on where you want to go with smart blocks, right? So we kind of touched on it a little bit into our fields. We talked a little bit about contact loops, and we talked a little bit about like regular smart blocks that you have. The best examples of smart blocks are going to be when you have information in an email that is not always going to be in that email, right? So as you guys are starting to look at your emails, review them, and go, okay, do I want this in here? Do I not want this in here? That's where you're going to start to think, okay, well, the only time I need to include this paragraph, this sentence, this contact information in this email is when I've met XYZ conditions, right? So I usually like to go to our intro email, because I think that one has quite a number of smart blocks on it. So we'll head down to our hammer icon, into templates, email templates, and then I'm just going to type in intro. The seller side or the buyer side is fine. If you guys have that pre-built account, this is going to look very familiar to you, so you can follow along if you'd like to. Let's go ahead and click on the seller side and see what we have here. So first things first, we've got that merge field at the top. It's pulling in that seller's name. And as I scroll down here, we see some more smart blocks. So I haven't quite touched on this just yet, but how are we going to know what these smart blocks say? Like, how do I know what this HOA responsibilities say? Do I need to go to the smart blocks to view them to then read what it says? No. You don't have to do that, actually. If you're reviewing your emails and you're wanting to make updates to the smart blocks right here within that body of that email, what you're going to want to do is highlight that smart block and then click on SB. That's going to pull open that smart block for you. You can read what it says here. You can see if there's any conditions. You can also click on where it says S HOA responsibilities, or the title of that smart block. And it's going to allow you to edit that smart block and add on some more conditions. So for this one, I actually need to add on a condition that says, if the property field, is there an HOA, is equal to yes. Whenever we're talking about setting up conditions for your guys' smart blocks, what I typically suggest is try to keep it simple when you get started. And then as you start to use more and more, and as you start to really get comfortable with your process, feel free to add on some more fun conditions with this. But for now, just as simple as finding out, is there an HOA equal to yes? That's when we want this particular condition to come on, or this particular smart block to come on. Now, if you notice when I said close, it closed out of that smart block. How do I get back to that screen? We're just going to want to make sure that this smart block is highlighted again. Click on SB and boom, is there an HOA? So this is just kind of determining, what are the smart blocks that are currently in your account, and how do I edit them, and how do I use them, and how do I add on conditions? That's kind of what we're talking about right now. I can build out a smart block, but I have to have an example of what I need to build out first. So Jana, do you have an example of a smart block that you've recently wanted to build, or does anyone else have a smart block where there's an email that they think they need a smart block in, with information that, they may or may not need all the time?
I've been doing earnest money as an example too, just because there's like free scenarios of either it's not delivered, or it's delivered, you're waiting on receipt, or you have the receipt in hand, you need to send it out to closing parties. So I kind of three smart block scenarios I may be able to
Perfect.
use. But it also looks like we have home inspectors for particular agents.
Home inspectors for a particular agent. Yeah. And we had looked at the contact loops for that too, Pam. I'll definitely pull that one up. Just to touch on what Janice said though, because she had used a really great example of like, has it been received? What was the terminology that you used again? Because you'd basically had listed out some statuses. That kind of relates back to our fields and making sure that we have the fields to be able to build out that smart block. And I don't think I have that field yet. I don't think I have a earnest money status, EDM status field yet.
Yeah, no, and that's really a lot of what it comes down to is using your fields potentially in tandem with your file role for a scenario like this. But it can be a great combination of smart blocks for your intro emails if you're in an area where earnest money could have been delivered with the contract, or maybe it's being delivered and you have 2 days to get that in. That smart block will allow you in those intro emails to be able to control things. I thought we had a status for EMD, but yeah,
I might not have one in my system, but I definitely want to add those in there. So what Jana was saying was, she'd made the suggestion that depending on what status we have will depend on what paragraph of information, or even the whole entire email itself, can populate, right? Because smart blocks don't just have to be a sentence or a paragraph. It can be a whole email. It can be an email that just has 3 smart blocks in it, and depending on what what status or what condition is met will depend on what verbiage shows up. So Jana, I want to create this one because I think that that's a great idea to start with, and we can create a little smart block from it. What were those statuses that you mentioned?
It will vary based on what you're tracking in your area. I know back in the day for me, it was tracking needs to be delivered, waiting on receipt, and then receipt received, or something like that. Jill, I definitely feel free to chime in too with what you guys were doing.
I'm going to keep spelling that with an extra E on there. It needs to be delivered. And then what was that last one that you had mentioned?
I'd say delivered, waiting on receipts, and then receipt received. I would just change that delivered down below because there's a little clarification, but.
Oh, okay. So, and then waiting on receipts, delivered and waiting on receipts.
Yep, delivered, waiting on receipt for that one.
Ooh. There we go. I'm going to select update to update that field. And then what was the last one that you would use?
Receipt received.
Receipt received. Awesome.
And again, this is going to be very specific to your guys' individual process and area, depending on what you guys are tracking. So definitely take some of this as inspiration for how you may want to build it out, but there may be some slight difference with what you guys are doing individually.
Oh yeah, that's a really great option too, Pam. Pam shared a couple more options, which would be e-funds link or delivered or mailed. That way you could kind of know what, like how are we delivering this earnest money? I like the idea of adding in that as well, because that can help you out. If you need to pull that information and say, well, if it's been mailed, then this is what our process is. Or if it's been, the e-funds link it's been sent through there. What is that particular process? What I want you guys to take notice is that I did click on these purple stars for each one of these options. The reason I did that is because I think the EDM status is something that I'm going to want to share with my agents, or anyone else who might be reviewing this particular contract, right? It doesn't have to just be agents that see this value. It could be, if you invite a brokerage or a lender or title or someone else as a contact role, or a client role or client portal on that particular transaction. So I always like to make sure that I'm clicking on those purple stars when I want to share that information with people. So now that I have this field in here, let's go ahead and scroll to the top. I'm not sure what kind of verbiage we're going to use, but let's go ahead and pop open a smart block. For anyone who is on the Grow plan, you're going to have a limit of 25 smart blocks that you're going to be able to create. If you're on the Pro plan, I believe it's unlimited. And then if you're on the Scale plan, it's also unlimited. So if you find yourselves hitting a block and you're like, oh, I don't have enough, or I don't have any more smart blocks and I wanted to create some more smart blocks, it might be a time to consider upgrading or just reviewing the smart blocks that you have and seeing, okay, what am I using? What am I not using? And you can have a choice here where I believe you can switch off the smart blocks. And I believe that will allow you to add in more. Jana, do you know if that's true? Or Matthew, do you guys know if that's true? Or is it that you have to only have 25 in this list?
25 active, I believe.
25 active. Wonderful. So you can turn off smart blocks that you're not using just in case you don't want to lose the verbiage, right? Maybe you'll use it in the future, but you need a new one urgently. So creating a smart block, how do I do that? I'm going to click on add smart block. Now that we've got that, what's it called? Now that we've got some conditions in there and we don't have to go back to our fields. Here with the smart block name, we're going to want to add in a name that's going to make sense for this particular process. So we should have probably a delivered EDM. And I'm always going to spell delivered wrong. And then again, like I said, I like to use that same verbiage that we're using for the smart block here as well. I might add on a little code for myself as well, where I put in SB if I'd like to, right? Because when we're looking at that smart block within the email templates, the merge fields are going to look pretty similar, right? So maybe we add on that little SB at the end there so we know that this is a smart block. I'm going to go ahead and say add. It's going to create that smart block and it's going to take me to that. So here I can add in the verbiage that I need. EDM has been delivered. We're just going to make up verbiage for right now. And then we're going to be adding on that condition. So here I'm going to select add condition. The condition that I'm going to want to add on is a property field. The property field that I'm going to be looking for is that EDM status that I just created. And then I'm going to want to say that if it's equal to delivered waiting on receipts, that I want this particular smart block to come in. If we want to create our next one, we're going to say create our next one. So we have it receipts. Oop. Received. I'm just going to tap on that EDM at the end there so that we know what that is. And again, I'm going to pop in that SB at the end and say add. And I'm just making up verbiage. Obviously, you'd want to put in whatever it is that you truly need to put in here. We'll add that condition again. We'll say based off of the property field, EDM status is equal to receipts received. And now we have that second smart block, and then we'll build that last one. Let me see. What was that last condition that we needed? Let me open up my fields really quickly. Needs to be delivered. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to say pending delivery. EDM. Pop in my little SB at the end there and say add. And then we'll add on that condition again. And this is how simple it is to create these smart blocks. It doesn't have to be anything extreme. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Now, obviously there's a set of different kinds of smart blocks as well. Based off of what I've built is I've literally just added in a sentence. You could add in a whole, set of instructions. We're still waiting on the EDM to be delivered. Please follow these instructions to send that EDM over. Whatever that looks like for you guys, you can have more than just a sentence. I just don't have any more play verbiage to put in here. For those particular ones here, again, if I kept with my spelling, then I can type in EDM, and then here I can see delivered EDM, pending delivered EDM, and received EDM. I can add them to a particular category as well if I wanted to, but what I wanted to show is that I can, type in the names, and as long as you're keeping your naming conventions similar to each other, this is going to make it a lot easier for you to search and look for those really quickly. The other thing I want you to take notice is that right next to where it says delivered EDM 1, and this one has a 1, and this one has a 1, and this one has a 0. The 1 is how many conditions do we have currently on this particular smart block? So currently there's only 1. If I click on it and we scroll down here, we can see that there's only 1 condition on that smart block. If I go back, type in EDM again, and I click on EDM receipt, if you see here, it says Google Drive link, which is very interesting, but I can see here that it has no condition. Okay, so this is an example of a smart block that doesn't have a condition. That means this value is going to come on every single time if we use EDM receipt. Does that help you understand how to create the smart blocks? Like for anyone else who was looking at that, it's pretty straightforward. As far as we're creating the smart blocks here, there is some additional strategy that I like to review. Again, like I said, I only have sentences for this, right? So maybe instead of me having it that I'm populating a whole email with it, instead I want to just include that particular sentence in it. Where you got caught up in was in the groups. Yeah, so smart block groups are a little interesting. Actually, Jana, do you have any strategy, or Jill, do you guys have any strategy for smart block groups? Do you think that the EDM options that we have here would be a good example of what we could include in a smart block group?
Potentially. So smart block groups, there are, several strategies around them. I definitely feel free to chime in as well with this. Really what you're doing is creating a group of smart blocks that you can easily insert into those messages. So it really depends on your strategy and your need at that point. My screen is fully locked up.
Is it locked up for you? I'm actually let's create one. EDM status. Well, that's what we'll call it for now, EDM status. So just like Jana said, if we're creating it and we want to create it for this, a smart block group is going to be just those grouping of those smart blocks within one. So what I can do is I can grab each one of those smart blocks that I just created. Here's the, let's go ahead and grab them in order. So it's going to be pending delivery, delivered, and receipt, received. What I'm doing here is I'm pasting them in, and they are right up against each other. I'm not going to have any excessive spacing or anything like that, because again, not every single one of these smart blocks is going to be applicable. It's only going to come on if it's needed to come on. So now that I have this smart block group, EDM status, I can add on an additional condition here. Maybe I can say something like, if EDM is something that we need, if there is an earnest money deposit, right? If the financing type is equal to anything but cash, then I need this EDM status to populate. But what we're going to do now is we'll leave no condition on it for the time being. I just want to make sure that we can kind of test how this looks. So let's go ahead and create an email. So I'm going to go into my templates. I'm going to go into my email templates. As you guys know, I am always going to suggest that when you have an email that you want to create an email template for it. This is going to make it so much easier for you guys to keep track of the content that you're trying to email out. I left in blanks. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. And it's hard, right? It's a really hard thing to know whether or not we should or shouldn't put in a space or not put in a space or put it on a new line. But Pam is saying that I left blanks between and I see the error of my ways. So you probably noticed that, oh, that's why there's excessive spaces in my emails, because there's spaces between it. Whenever we're talking about that punctuation and and the grammatical way of looking at things, we'll want to make sure that that's included within the smart block itself. Not necessarily the group, not necessarily the email, but the smart block itself should have the spacing that it needs to, the capitalization and the punctuation that it needs to. So here I'm just going to create EDM status email, just something simple. And I'm going to pop in today's date so I know when I created this particular email. Not everyone needs to add in a date. Usually I would suggest using your categories to put that into the correct place, but just for the sake of testing, we'll go ahead and do that. Here again, we'll want to pop on our, our subject. So I'm just going to pop in EDM status. I like that it says property address, so I'm going to leave that here, and I can say, hello, and then pop in my smart block group right away, right? I don't need anything crazier than that. We'll click on our little 3-line icons, 3 dots. We can go to that smart block group. Here's that EDM status and paste it in there. Simple as that. So this would be like if we wanted to make it super easy. If you recall, when we were looking at that intro email to sellers, we have all of these smart blocks listed like this. Technically, we could create a smart block group called intro email smart blocks. And instead of you having all 3 of them here, or all 4 of them, I should say, I think these are 4. There's 4 or 5, all 5 of them here. You could instead have that single line like I now have here. So let's go ahead and test this. Let's go ahead and preview this email on a property. I'm going to grab just the name of the title for it right here. We're going to exit out of this one. We're going to go to a property that I know has verbiage on it. So let's go ahead and go to West Taylor. Now I do need to add in that field that I created. If we look here underneath escrow details, I do not have that EDM status field on here. And I'm going to need that EDM status field to make sure that my smart block populates correctly. So I'm going to show you what it looks like before I add it in. This is from our previous testing that we did. So I'll go ahead and delete that. So first I'm going to show you what it looks like just to apply that template. Here I'm going to look for the template. Here's the template. I say apply, and it just says hello. That's it. Nothing meets the conditions. It's not going to come on. So now I'm going to click on manage so I can bring on that field. When I click on manage, I can scroll down to our earnest money. Here's our EDM status, add that in there and say update fields. Now, if I scroll down, we're going to see that EDM status underneath our escrow details. Here it is. And I'm just going to change it through the different things. So let's go ahead and say needs to be delivered. And then we're going to say apply our template. Let's go ahead and grab that email template we created again, and voila. Now we have that verbiage in there. So that's how we can use smart block groups. If I go ahead and change that status again from delivered to delivered waiting on receipts, and we test out this email again, we're going to look for it. We're going to apply it. It's going to change that verbiage now to the EDM has been delivered. So this is how you can create it, that smart block either has like one sentence, or it has a full paragraph. It has its whole email built into it. And then you can use the smart block groups to say that, well, I don't want to have, 10 or 3 or 4 smart blocks listed out. Instead, I'd like them all to be grouped into one. And I know that whenever I bring on that EDM list, I can put it on there. The other thing with this particular one, if you notice, what I want you to take notice is right now it says hello, and then it says the EDM has been delivered and it's on a new line. That's because of how I put it inside of that particular email template. Let's go ahead and take a look at some ways that you can change that up, because I see this a lot, right? If I put this on here, I'm going to put it here for now, and then I'm going to close out of our template editor. So now we know it's all on one line. I'm going to apply that email template again. What I want you guys to take notice that it's still putting it on that second line. You might be asking yourselves, well, why? I want it to be all on one line, Hannah. I need it to be in line, right? Whenever we want to make it that this is going to be on the same line as the greeting, right? For example, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to pop open our smart blocks. We're going to want to locate those smart blocks, and then we're going to want to switch on this particular switch right here. So this purple switch, what that does is it changes it from a create a new paragraph to make this an inline smart block. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell the system that instead of making this into a new paragraph and separating it from the rest of the content, pop it in there as if it belongs in there, right? Make it that it's in line with the paragraph that's in there. So now if I reapply this template, it looks like it's still saying EDM has been delivered. So that's going to have me go back and start to troubleshoot this particular smart block. Let's go ahead and take a look first at the smart block group, because I could need to turn on that switch for the smart block group as well. Again, you can either do Control S to open up that smart block, or you can click on smart blocks here. Let's go to our smart block groups. Aha, I also need to turn on that switch here for inline as well. So if we're doing an inline smart block, not only do we need the smart blocks themselves to be inline, but we're also going to want that smart block group to be inline. Let's go ahead and take a peek again on that property. I'm going to go ahead and update the status and apply that last option that we have. So we'll change this to the receipt has been received. We'll go to our emails. We'll go ahead and delete this email. So we're just clearing it out. We can see now that this is an empty email. Let's go ahead and say apply email template, paste in that email template and say apply. And now we see that it says, hello, thank you. We've confirmed that we've received the EDM receipt. So if you need it to be in line, this is how you would have it in line. We'll want to make sure that that's smart block. So if I go Control S, it'll open up my smart blocks. If I type in EDM, we'll want to make sure that this inline is turned on. So purple switch turned on for these if you want it to be on the same line. And then if you're using that smart block group, make sure that that's also inline. Any questions on that? Do you guys feel like that clarified some things, kind of showed you where you need to go and troubleshoot for some things? Is there anything that Jana or Jill or Matthew wants to add?
I was just going to say, hopefully you can hear me. We're getting some storms up in Michigan, so it's a little weird here right now.
Oh, no.
The thing that I probably use it most for is like appraisal status, or the other one that I use the groups for a lot too was utility companies. So once we had utility companies, I would throw a contact list together.
Yeah.
And pull that in. So that's another example.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. And I think that that's a perfect way to segue into the second part of your question, Pam, which was how do I build out those contact loops? Like, how do I build out the list of people recommended by the agent, right? So let's talk about contact loops a little bit. I touched on it a little bit on our previous training. I'm first going to go to my categories here and I'm going to click on contact loops. I'm going to do this just so that we can kind of see what a contact loop looks like already, and then we'll just recreate the same exact one. So home inspector recommended by agent. Let's talk about how this, because this is like more than just building out this particular contact loop, right? I've seen some people build it out where instead of, they grab this information, but then they also have, it specific to the person. Instead of by agent, it says by Hannah, I'm the agent. These are my specific home inspectors recommended by me. And again, when we're looking at our smart blocks, you can add in regular merge fields, or you can add in regular contact roles. So if you're tracking your contacts within your fields, you can technically bring their information on. I would obviously suggest that you keep all information for all of your party members in your contacts and then have that contact role assigned to them. So when we're taking a look at this particular one, what we instead are going to do is we're going to have like two parts that are going to work together. First part is, number one, we have this smart block built out. This smart block can be used for every single agent within my database, because what it's doing is saying, we're looking for this contact role, home inspector recommended by agent, to come on, right? That's who we're looking for, not necessarily the agent specific. Oh, it's these three people that they take care of. Instead, it's going to be, we're just looking for that general contact role. Part two of this, once you've made this smart block, is going to be making sure that we have our contacts grouped appropriately. So what you can do is you can head down to our hammer icon into filters. We can go down to groups and we can create an individual group. So let's go ahead and say, here we've got Jana's team. I'm going to change this to Jana's inspectors. And now we have a group of Jana's inspectors, right? So Jana is my agent. I'm going to make sure that she has her inspectors, her group of inspectors that I can add to a property. So first I'm going to create that group, Jana's inspectors. Next, I'm going to go find those inspectors and add them to that group. So I can go over to contacts. Let's go ahead and add all of the Pams that we have to this. Well, let's mix it up. let's go ahead and grab home inspector recommended by agent. Here, we'll grab this Pam, and we're going to go to groups, and we're going to add her to Jana's inspectors. We're going to exit out of Pam, and next we're going to go to Andy, and we're going to go to groups, and we're going to say Jana's inspectors. And the next person we're going to go down to is, let me see if I've got any more people with this contact role. Home inspector. Oh, sorry about that here. It'll be easier if we look at by the contact role here. Home inspector recommended by agent. Go ahead and say close. So those are the only two that we have right now. Okay, let's switch over some other people. Let's see, I've got a Han Banan in here. We're going to change this to our home inspector recommended by agent. So let's say these are the 3 people that are on Jana's team. This is Jana's recommended people. We're going to add them to that group. Okay. Once they have those current groups on there, let's go ahead and head to a transaction. Let's go ahead and go to, West Ivy. Let's go to Ivy Lane. Underneath our contacts, I'm going to go ahead and collapse this view right now. Actually, you know what? Let's go to one that doesn't have contacts on it. I'm going to delete all of these contacts just for now. Again, this isn't my test account, so I'm totally okay with doing it. Let's go ahead and assign that contact group. And I'm going to say Jana's inspectors. Here's Jana's inspectors, assigning that group, adding them on there, right? So now we have the list of Jana's home inspectors recommended by agent added to this particular property. So as long as we have them grouped up, those contacts grouped up, when we go to use that contact loop, I'm going to go ahead and do Control S again. Here's that loop that we have right here. Let's go ahead and build this out from the beginning again, just so that we know how to do this. But this is the structure that we're going to grab. I'm going to rename this slightly different to create that smart block. So I'm going to paste that in there, but I'm going to name it agent test. Pop in a test there at the end, just so that the naming is slightly different. I'll go ahead and remove the excessive underscores here. We'll go ahead and say add. It brings us to that smart block. So now we're going to create that contact loop. We're going to click on our 3-line 3-dot icon. We're going to head to our utilities, and we're going to click on contact loop. Once we've selected contact loop, we're going to paste it into the body of the message, and then we're going to make that end contact onto a new line. Okay. Now, in between start contact and end contact, that's where we're adding in those merge fields. So here I'm going to click on our contact roles again. I'm going to look for that home inspector recommended by agent. So I always like to start to type in the name. It just makes it easier instead of looking at that long list of people. Here, once I've selected my home inspector recommended by agent, it shows me all of the different merge fields for them. Again, anything that's marked under personal, think of that as the main contacts information. Anything marked as business, that is the business contact information. So some of those phone numbers, some of those emails, some of those addresses might be different. Depending on what you want to share will depend on what you select here, right? So I'm going to grab the agent's first name and their full name actually, and I'm going to paste that in. And then next, I'm going to go ahead and grab that agent's email, their email, not the business email. And I'm going to paste that in as well. And then I'm going to press enter. And then let's go ahead and grab their business phone number. I don't know if all of them have a business phone number, but let's go ahead and grab it, and we can go back and we can add in a business phone number. So I'll grab cell phone. We also have a regular phone number, just depends on which one you want to grab. And I'm going to paste that in there. I can also add in the business address if I want to. Remember, when we're selecting address as the merge field, we do not need to grab city, state, or zip. Address is going to be all encompassing. It's going to include that city, state, and zip if those are added into those business details. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there as well. And then as always, if we have more than one, if we're creating a contact loop, we want to have a page break between these. Otherwise, all of the contacts are going to be smushed together. So I like to add in another space. We'll go to utilities and we'll grab that new line HTML BR tag. And what this does is it puts in that page break. So now we have the structure of this contact loop. I'm going to go ahead and head to the top above start contact, and I'm going to add in home inspectors recommended by your agent. If I want to, I can actually grab in the merge field for agent, right? So I can go to contact roles, I can grab buyer's agent, and I can grab first name because, maybe they're on a first name basis. and we want to add in a merge field. Again, when we're talking about smart blocks, it doesn't just have to be, it doesn't, you can make it a little bit more complicated, right? You can add in smart blocks within smart blocks. You can add in a number of different merge fields. We'll just want to make sure that we build out the conditions for this smart block to populate correctly, right? So the first thing that I'm probably going to do is number one, let's add on some conditions. First condition that I'm going to add on here is that I need to know that the contact role, buyer's agent, is actually on the property. And I like to do this because this is a double check to make sure that you have all the party members on this property. Let's say this is one of the first emails that send out, right? And you haven't added on your buyer's agent because your buyer's agent is, someone that you're working with, or the person that submitted that intake form. Well, just because the buyer's agent submitted that intake form doesn't mean that their contact with their contact role is on that property. So I like to add this in here as just another double check, make sure that that person actually exists on the property. Number two, we're going to go for another contact role, and we're going to say that we want that contact role home inspector recommended by agent is also existing on the property. We don't want to send this out and have it be a blank list, right? So we want to make sure that those party members are truly on that property. Using the conditions is going to help us double check, wait, do we really have them on there? And then lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to grab a property field, and the property field that we're going to look for is an inspection required equal to yes. We don't need this block of information if we don't have an inspection coming. I'm going to go ahead and say add. So now we've created this smart block with these three conditions. I'm going to go ahead and click on back for that smart block. Here again, it's added underneath there. Where's our actually, it might not have been added underneath there. Let's go ahead and get out of our categories really quickly. Remember how I added in test at the end? That's to make things easier on me. If I type in test, I can go to categories and say contact loop. Now I've got this little red triangle sign on my contact loop. What does that mean, Hannah? Well, it means that my smart block is not quite yet done being tested and built out. There could be something wrong with the way that I built it out. So I'm going to click on smart block. And here it's just giving me some information on what's going on with this. It's saying that the information right now is not valid, right? So what it's saying is that there's just some excessive HTML code that's populated in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my HTML and I'm going to pop it open, and I'm just going to double check to see what's the information in here. Would you add in a buyer? Would you add in if a buyer exists? You could. You absolutely could, Pam. Yes. If you wanted to, you could totally add in if a buyer exists in the property as well. That's definitely another good example of what kind of fields you might want to bring in there. So just taking a peek at this particular one, let me see this again. So this says start contact dividend. Okay, let's say validate. It's not validating it. Let me just double check this again. Let me see, how is it doing? Okay. So something that I can do to test this out is actually remove the HTML. Let's see if that will work. Jana, have you run into this issue before with your smart blocks? I know that there's a quick fix, but right now it's escaping me.
Yes, it looks like sometimes going through, taking out your divs, essentially forcing the system to put those back in place can help. If you guys get to this point with your smart block troubleshooting, basic validation adjustments are not working for you, I'd also just stress, reach out to us in support as well, especially as you're getting used to it, because there may be some things that we're going to test on the back end to take a deeper look at it. But Matthew, on this one, I'd probably have you take a shot at it, saying what you're running into as you're troubleshooting those with the support. But that being said, in this case, I'd want to take a little bit of a deeper look. Sorry, I was multitasking there a little bit.
No, you're totally good. Let me see if I can paste it into here. All would be separated. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so like Janice said, we'll probably go through and we'll do some more testing with it. I already have a smart block that has that same exact logic with it that is already operating. So we're going to go ahead and use that as our example. As I've said before, whenever we're trying to test out a smart block, we want to make sure that we're meeting all the conditions. So I'm going to do Control S again. We're going to go to our contact loops really quickly. I'm going to click on that home inspector recommended by agent. And I'm just going to make sure, okay, so a home inspector recommended by agent exists on the property. This needs to be in here. I'm going to go ahead and add in that verbiage that I had before. Here are the inspectors recommended by your, or I'll just say by, and then I'll pop in that buyer's first name. Buyer agent, first name, pop that in there, put in the colon. Okay. Going back, exiting out of there. So now when we want to test out that smart block, we have a choice. Obviously, we can add it into the body of the email if we want to, or if we just want to see what it looks like. I'm on the property already. I have some home inspectors recommended by agent. I believe I have the values in there that I need for those particular contacts. When I go to check that smart block out, I'm going to click on our little merge fields icon. I'm going to go to smart blocks. I'm going to locate that one. So home inspector recommended by agent. When I copy it, this little notice up there at the top, it disappeared very quickly, but this little notice up here at the top says that whenever you're copying or checking out a smart block, what you're going to want to do is paste it into the source code. So if I just paste it into here, it's going to throw out a bunch of extra HTML and spaces, and it's not going to look the way we want it to. But if we click on our source code, paste it into our source code, don't worry about the way it looks, and say save. Here now we can see how those values populate. So here we can see that it's trying to pull in. And again, I might need to reference this smart block again. Let me do Control S and see what's on this particular contact loop. So it's bringing in the full name, the business name, and the business cell phone number. So here it's pulling in the full name, the business name, and then we don't have any business cell phone numbers for these contacts just yet. If I wanted to validate and update those, I'm going to head to my contacts, and then I can actually edit my contacts right here. Let's go ahead and click on business. Looks like it's pulling a phone number. So it's probably pulling in the cell phone number. So let's add in 555-666-333. And then we're going to change this to the really cool inspector club. Just adding in some extra verbiage. That way we can see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and edit for Andy as well. We're going to business again. The office is fine. I'm going to add in 888. Oh, there we go. 888-555-777 and update. And then let's go ahead and grab Han Bananas. Go to their business. Banana inspections. And then we'll pop in our phone number, 999. Oh, there we go. 999-888-666. Update. Now that I've updated those values, I'm going to want to paste that I'm going to want to paste that particular smart block in there again. So I'm going to delete what we have. We're going to click on that again. We're going to go to our smart blocks. I'm going to type in home to make it easier for us to find. Here's that home inspector recommended by agent. We'll grab this merge field, place it in there. We can see some more values in there. When we say save, this is what that's going to look like. Now, if you notice here, it says buy and it's not pulling anything. It's because we don't have that buyer's contact on there. So let's go ahead and add on a Janet, and they're going to be our buyer's agent. We're going to test out that smart block again. Again, you can click on the little delete icon and clear out the email completely. But when we want to test out those smart blocks, we're going to click on our little smart block, our merge field icon, go to smart blocks, locate the smart block that we need, home inspector recommended by agent, click on our source code, paste it into our source code, and then say save. And now it says, here are the inspectors recommended by Jana. Okay. And this is how you, or how, again, it's pairing two parts of the system together. We're pairing together that contact groups, we're saying Jana's inspectors, that's a contact group that I have. It shows you the people that are coming on here. I like to use that. And then when we start looking at that actual, email itself, we're going to be using that inspector recommended by. Another really cool thing about using a contact group is that when we apply this set of contacts here and the agent comes back, or that the buyer comes back and they go, oh my gosh, I really love banana inspectors. They inspected my mom's house and they did just a great job. I really want them to be the ones. When you update this contact role, home inspector recommended by agent to now they're the home inspector, right? They've been selected. It's going to update it on the property. So it's not going to update that contact role. If I exit out of here and go back to contacts, hand banana is still going to be the home inspector recommended by agent. But for this particular property, they were selected as the home inspector. So I like showing this as well, because if we go back to emails and we go back to our merge fields and we grab that smart block again. Oh, let me grab the smart block again. I was on our merge fields, grab that smart block again, and we test it out again. I'm just going to click into the merge, into the source code, paste that in. You'll notice that hand banana is no longer listed there. Why? Because they've now been officially selected as the inspector. We are at the last 5 minutes. Thank you guys for joining us today. We did a deep dive on smart blocks, which was a lot of fun. If you have any other last minute questions, feel free to drop them in. Of course, Pam, thank you for asking. I think that was really great to kind of jump in and get through this. Todd. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that'd be great, Todd. Yeah, definitely. Send that list over to me and I'll look it through. And if I have any, responses for you, I can definitely respond to you before our meeting, if we need to. As always, if you guys are looking for support, I already mentioned this in the beginning, but I like to recap it just in case you guys, enter in any questions that you have. This is the last 5 minutes. But if you do have questions, if you do run into issues like how I ran into that issue with my smart block, definitely feel free to reach out to us into support. What I would do at this moment is I'd start to record a loom and I'd say, this is my smart block. This is what it looks like. This is what error it's throwing me. This is what I've tried. And I'd send that over to support and say, I'm having issues with my smart blocks. If you just message and say, I'm having issues with my smart blocks, and you don't give us any context, it's going to take us a little bit longer to dig into your issues. So definitely share as much as you can, screenshots, names of things, where you were testing them, all that good stuff is really helpful for us to be able to help you guys out, and help you guys out faster than, than just going, okay, well, what property is it on? What's the name of the smart block? And where were you trying to use it? And when did you build it? It might be easier if you just share that information ahead of time. As always, you can go to the person icon at the top and you can go to our support center. Here's our support center. If you need to look up anything like smart blocks again today, we're going to type in smart blocks. And now we'll see that we can search for our smart blocks here. If you guys were looking for webinars, you're going to go to our opentoclose.com landing page, head over to learn and go to webinars. You can also type in opentoclose.com/webinars, and you can find our list of webinars here. Next week, we're going to be going over tasks and triggers and contacts 101, as well as having our Wednesday workshop that we have every single week. Once this recording is finished processing, we will upload it to YouTube. And then we'll get it into our help center. So if you're looking for it, if you're like, oh my gosh, this was really helpful, I want to use this for how I build out my smart blocks. Absolutely. I believe it's what's the turnaround time for that, Jana? I think it's like 4 or 5 business days, correct?
Yeah,
to get the recordings in?
Yeah, typically we're going to get the recordings in YouTube a little bit quicker just because that piece we can get in, I'd say within 2 to 3 business days typically, but the article itself showing up in our service center, I'd say about 3 to 5 business days is our goal, but it really depends on our workload at that point. So take a look at YouTube first, and then you should also see those in our knowledge base within about a week.
And here is our YouTube. I'm going to drop that in the chat for anyone who's curious, who's like, oh, I will want this like right away. Drop it in the chat. Feel free to subscribe to us if you guys want to. I'm not sure why I'm not subscribed, but I am subscribed now. But here you can see we've got those previous Wednesday workshops up here. So we'll upload that as soon as we get the, as soon as we finish processing this recording and then downloading it and then uploading it. It's quite a number of steps. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad that they pop up on your YouTube feed. Now that I subscribed, I'm probably going to get them popping up on mine too. I'm kind of excited for that. Awesome, guys. Well, we don't have any more questions. So we'll go ahead and end here for today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Make sure to stay hydrated. Jana, Jill, Matthew, any last minute tidbits that you guys wanted to add before we close out?
No, I think that was perfect.
Perfect.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. See you guys next week. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Show up next week. We'll see you next week.